tech, maybe we can have an assistance on behalf of Wafa because I think they are having a hard time in screen sharing the timer. Okay, but
I'm really sorry. I
because
think
I
it's
think
my
they are having a hard
technical
time in
glitch.
screen
Actually, I
sharing the
wasn't
timer
able to hear anything after. I
because
think
I
it's
think
my
they are having a hard
technical
time. Okay,
glitch.
no worries.
Actually, I
Sharing the
wasn't
timer.
able
Please,
to hear anything
may I just
after.
ask the other debaters to please have your own
I
timer
think
as
it's
well,
my
so we can
technical
okay, no
glitch.
worries.
Actually, I
Sharing the
wasn't
timer.
able
Please,
to hear
may
anything
I just
after.
ask the other debaters to please have your own
I
timer
think
as
it's
well,
my
so we can
technical
okay, no
glitch.
worries.
Actually, I
Sharing the
wasn't
timer.
able to
Please,
hear
may
anything
I just
after.
ask the other debaters to please have your own
I
timer
think
as
it's
well,
my
so we can
technical
okay, no
glitch.
worries.
Actually, I
Sharing the
wasn't
timer.
able
Please,
to hear
may
anything
I just
after.
ask the other debaters to please have your own
I
timer
think
as
it's
well,
my
so we can
technical
okay, no
glitch.
worries.
Actually, I
Sharing the
wasn't
timer.
able
Please,
to hear anything
may I just
after.
ask the other debaters to please
Okay. So
have
today,
your
as a
own
I
deputy
timer
think
prime
it's
as well,
minister,
my
I'll
so
be
we
doing
can
technical
okay, no
glitch.
first,
worries.
I'll be
Actually, I
Sharing the
wasn't
timer.
discussing
able
and
Please,
to
just giving
hear
you my
anything
views and
after.
position. Second, I'll be giving out my arguments. And third, I'll be showing you how our world is much better and protects feminist rights and develops on it. So here I go. So first of all, what the LO came here and told us is that basically in both her arguments, her main constructive idea was one, that males will be hijacking the position, the feminist movement. Well, number one, ma'am, they're not going to hijack anything because they are just spokespersons. They are not going to they are not entering they are not spearheading these feminist movements. The movements are still being spearheaded by females. So you cannot come here and say that, males will be tapping the head of women and telling them what to think. You cannot come here and say that they will hijack the movements. Ma'am, they are mere spokespersons. They are mere spokespersons who are there to attract and inform male dominated audience in the society who have a very negative aspect about feminism. They're there just to educate. Nobody is taking away from the feminist movements. Women's rights, women's equality is well represented in the in this. Spokespersons are not going to not going to change how feminist movements works. Number two, they are not going to enter the minds of women and tell them what to think. Number three, they are just there to garner support and eradicate any negative aspects that male dominated society has, any negative uh, thoughts that they have about female feminist movements, right? Number two, what I feel is that the opposition has come up here and only has taken the whole motion in a very different sense. What they have done is they have come up here and only spoken about how it will be hijacked, how it will be hijacked. They have not spoken anything extremely constructive. Well, it is not going to be hijacked at all. Number two, she said about how these are all safe spaces for women. Yes, I understand, ma'am. These are safe spaces, and even if males become spokespersons of these feminist movements, they still continue to be safe spaces. No spokesperson is going to come and change the organization. These spaces, these movements and these organizations are still going to be spearheaded by women. These are going to share the experiences of women, and they are going to be controlled by women. So there's no negative things happening. Second, they said that about policy changes, that women get together, they talk about their problems and they push forward a policy change. Now, this is a very dismal point to make, but yes, what has happened is, today in the world, in the status quo that we live in, governments are mostly male dominated. We know that even after whatever is happening, they are male dominated. So now all we are saying is that if a male spokespersons are appointed, or they are there is a higher probability that government will listen to men, and they will actually bring about extremely effective change for feminist movements. So what this does is actually bring about the practical change that feminist movements want. Second, does not take away from the feminist ideas of feminism or the core concept of feminism. It instead helps feminism a lot. So I don't think what we are doing is wrong. Second, she said men listen to men. Ma'am, yes, we are saying that men listen to men, and that's why we should tell these. Okay, let's talk about a spokesperson. Now, any spokesperson, they won't, no feminist movement is just going to appoint some random person as a spokesperson. Spokespersons are appointed only if their ideas, their values, their morals match with the organization. Once they are appointed, so that means that those spokesperson, even if they are male, they believe in the ideas of feminism. So they are not going to mansplain, they are not going to bring about any negative change in the organization of the whole organization, or nor are they going to change the whole idea of feminism, which is not possible because they agree to it, and that's why they agree that women's need right, and there needs to be equality in society. That's why they are spokespersons, right? Moving on to moving on to my major to constructive, how our world is not taking away from female representation and how it is not getting ignored at all. So what I wanted to say is that I have mostly said it in my rebuttals, but what I want to say further is that women will be still spearheading, they will be in control of what is happening. Male, what are why are, now let's get to what who are these spokespersons and what is happening. So these spokespersons are activists, these spokespersons are actors, these spokespersons are celebrities who can act, who have diverse target audience in different sections of society. So what we'll be doing is we'll be promoting the feminist movements across different sections of society and convincing them and bringing out the ideas of feminism to them, not deconstructing or influencing them in a bad way. Also, nowhere we have said that there will only and only be male spokesperson. We also say that yes, in the near future there are and there will be female spokespersons as well who will carry on the job. So we are not taking away anything. Moving on, also, if we incorporate male sections of society into the feminist movements, what we are doing is women are the feminist movements are practicing what they preach. They preach about equality, so they will practice that in their organizational mechanism by making these male spokesperson a part of their mechanism. So it will not be a hollow movement. Instead, it would be looked upon as a more constructive, reformative, and actual and bring about actual social change. Second, we are not taking away any attention from the feminist movement. What we are doing, we are using these male spokespersons.
Please give me
Yeah,
it's my turn, right?
Yes. Sorry, Wafa, are you saying something?
yeah, I was just going to say that I'll screen share.
All right, sure.
Yeah, I'll just take a minute.
Also, I think Adia just changed their device.
Yep, I'm here. I've changed my
All
device.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can someone confirm if I'm clearly audible?
Yes, you are clearly audible.
Okay, great. Hi guys, my name is Neha. I'll be going as deputy leader of opposition. My pronouns are she and her. If you have any POIs, please put them in the chat box. If I don't answer them within 10 seconds, then please unmute yourself and ask me the POI. Uh, just a second, I'll set up a timer for myself. Okay, I'll just one sec. Okay, I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Okay, finally, let's understand what the motion is, right? In the motion, we're talking about feminist groups. What are these feminist groups? Like my leader of opposition said, these are groups that fight for women empowerment and they fight to establish equality, right? And they fight against specific issues like sexism, domestic violence, atrocities, discrimination, trigger violence, trigger warning, sexual harassment, pay wage and the wage gaps, etc. Now, we do know that in status quo, these problems are mainly caused by men, right? It is these men who are the perpetrators who exploit the patriarchal structure on purpose that mostly benefits them. As a feminist group, your number one priority has to be to create a safe space for these women who are your majority stakeholders and to ensure that they do not feel threatened or uncomfortable, at least within the walls of your institution, right? The exclusion of these male spokesperson or these male spokespeople will ensure that the members of the feminist groups are given a safe space within which they can address their issues comfortably. Now, when a feminist group starts actively recruiting male spokespeople, there is a high propensity that these feminist groups also have the tendency to become male dominated spaces, and the very problems that you're trying to battle outside and you're trying to fight against turn up within your own organization, turn up within your own institution, right? And there is another point that in the real world, in status quo, there's a fundamental lack of representation for women, right? Even in reserved seats for women, like when we talk about political bodies, especially in India, we see that even the reserved seats are usually utilized by men when they prop up their own wives or sisters in those seats, right? In that case, you again want to bring men into this institution, which is supposed to be a safe space for women. It is a basic principle that when you have to address a particular issue which has only been faced by certain sections of the minority, please focus on this. This is an issue affecting certain sections of the minority, right? When you talk about these issues, you need to give the stage, you need to give the voice to those particular people specifically who have been affected by the issue, to ensure representation and to ensure that an accurate version or an accurate narrative of the problem is going out, right? So women who have faced the brunt and the worst consequences of the patriarchal system can obviously put across a more genuine and accurate narrative of the problems that we are trying to battle, right? Like for example, take any problem, domestic violence, sexual harassment, wage gap, all these problems. Women are the ones who most times bear the brunt of these problems and are most of the times the worst victims of these problems. So obviously their narrative is going to be the most accurate one. The last thing we need is a privileged man again mansplaining feminist issues. We of course recognize that men are also affected by the patriarchal system, but since most women are affected and discriminated against, they become our main stakeholders in this organization, and it is imperative to ensure a safe space where they can address their concerns without male dominance. Now, any male individual who anyway in their paradigm, they say that these males also want to rally for feminist issues, right? Which is great. We say that's a great thing. So any male individual who wants to rally for the feminist cause can do so anyway. It is not dependent on them being recruited to this particular feminist organization. They can of course use social media, their social circle, and we are in no way denying or dismissing the rights of a male individual to rally for the feminist cause. They are free to do so, but why is there a compulsion that they will only do it if they are recruited into this particular feminist group? They mentioned an example of celebrities, right? In the last speech that government mentions, there are celebrities who have a huge target audience. They have a huge following who can obviously bring attention to the feminist cause. Okay, then why don't you do it? Why do you necessarily want to be recruited to the feminist groups? Why are you waiting to be recruited into the feminist groups to do it? If you are a person who genuinely believes in that, if you are a person, like you said, you have to be a person who does that. If you're an individual who wants to rally for the feminist cause, and if you're a celebrity who wants to do that, like the example that government gave, why is there like a compulsion? Why is there a side note that I will only do it if I'm recruited into this particular feminist group, right? And when it comes to these male people, right, I'll come back to that later. Anyway, when we talk about sexism, you need to realize that it's not always evident. It's not always very clear when, like, issues like domestic violence, atrocities, etc. There are also very subtle expressions of sexism that men aren't even aware of. There are always these comments, these looks, that remarks, these subtle, very subtle expressions of sexism that only women receive. How are men equipped to dismantle this patriarchal structure when they're not even fully aware of its aspects? Government says themselves in the first line in the Prime Minister's speech, the government said that men have a notion that these feminist movements are only for women, right? That they don't care about men, they're only women centered. Let me remind you that this points towards the lack of awareness amongst these men, not towards an issue in the movement. The movement exists as it is. There is a lack of awareness amongst these women, amongst these men, and that is why they think that. Despite this, the government insists that you should still recruit these ill-informed men within the system into your feminist group who is actively trying to fight this issue, just because you want to clear this misconception, and you apparently can only do it if you recruit the same ill-informed men into your organization, right? They claim that these men are not hijacking the movement; they're merely educating the people. Now, if I look at it from a very practical standpoint, in my organization, I have a couple of people who are well informed about the issue and who will send out an accurate narrative. If I now recruit ill-informed people who are supposed to be, these men are supposed to be educating people, right? How exactly are you going to educate them if you're ill-informed? They gave the example of Virat Kohli cooking 3 meals, right? This is exactly what we're talking about. This is exactly the problem. Virat Kohli said that he cooks 3 meals and everybody starts glorifying him. That is the problem because men are glorifying the bare minimum, setting it as the end goal. This is the very problem with men sending out the narrative, because you're not sending out the accurate narrative, right? You cooking 3 meals is not a big deal. That is not something that you're supposed to be applauded for. Women do that on a daily basis. That is the problem that with the narrative that men are sending out. When a feminist group lends authenticity to this false information that your male spokespeople are sending out, then you're also partner. You're literally you're literally also spreading false information, because this male spokesperson is a part of your organization, so you are spreading wrong information along with them, right? There's always the propensity that actively recruiting men in feminist groups will also lead to saturation of the issues that you're fighting for, because as a feminist group, like I already said, you'll be spreading misinformation because they don't have an accurate understanding of issues faced by women, right? Government basically proposes a case wherein they say that men, yes, we know that they're ill-informed, yes, we know that they don't have an accurate understanding of the case, but they should still be recruited despite lack of awareness, because somehow the government will only listen to them. As a feminist group, your job is to not sit in a corner. If the government doesn't listen to you, it is your job to make sure your voices are heard. It is not to give a concession. The side government proposed a case with a lot of loopholes and illogical statements and very problematic statements. That is why we think the motion falls. That's my case. Thank you.
All right. The speaker spoke for more than 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Just a quick reminder to all that the panel will stop taking notes at the 7:15 mark. So make sure to fit your speech within the time mark. All right. Now to summarize the debate, calling on the government whip.
Yes, I will be putting my own time in. So it is- I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Okay, Muskan Gai,
I'm sorry. Maybe you can come closer to your microphone.
Okay, is this better?
Uh, yeah,
Is this
somehow
better?
better. Yes, better.
Okay, I'll be a little louder also. So I was saying, Muskan Gai, Vedan, kindly take note of the pronouns. Okay, I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. All right, panel. So the motion that we debated today was that the House believes that feminist groups should actively recruit the male spokespeople, right? So first of all, I'd like to start with the rebuttals, moving on to the two-word analysis, which would also include a culmination of the points we made. So starting with the rebuttals, I think the main argument was surrounding representation and accurate representation, right? So this is something that I'll be tackling across my speech, but we'd like to tackle that for the starting. We'd like to tackle that by saying that the starting is male domineering. We agree with that, but that is not going to be the status quo for longer, right? Because the status quo is already dictating less representation. We need to create a comparison here between short-term and long-term benefits, which I'll be talking about later. First of all, let's start with the rebuttals. So let's start. So the opposition spoke about how the LO said, I don't, also the LO said that I don't blame men for anything, but then they continue to talk about patriarchy. So I don't know what that was. I mean, why you're not blaming them, I don't understand. Men are active promoters of this patriarchy because they're in over their head is, haha, we are privileged and we continue to be that way. Moving on, the opposition spoke about how the emotion is about active involvement of men and that we have misinterpreted it. We acknowledge that, not the misinterpretation, but that we misinterpreted it rightly, and we'll elaborate on this later. Moving on, the opposition spoke about how the end goal would be to be comfortable about different problems of life in feminism and how men will be intruding. First of all, let me clarify who is causing the problem. Men, right? So aren't they the ones we should bring this up with rather than going over to our own places and discussing about this with like no solution as such? Moving on, the opposition spoke about how men will say that they're better with respect to feminism because we give them representation in that feminist movement. I hope you do understand that active male recruiters will be those who are actually promoting feminism, right? Also, at one point, don't you think that men created this issue? Why are we the ones who are solving it, we being the feminists? Why is the burden of educating men on women's sites so extensively, right? Moving on, the opposition spoke about how we don't want another space for mansplaining. I'll be tackling this later. Opposition spoke about how women might not resonate with the cause. I'm sorry, but the entire thing exists because of a certain reason. Why would they not resonate? When we say that men will listen to men, we're not saying that they'll be talking about their own problems. They'll just be tailoring the feminist movement in a way. When we say tailoring, that does not mean removing any of the core issues, but trying to put it in a way so that men's peanut-sized brains can understand it. Moving on, the opposition spoke about how you cannot call yourself a feminist and don't give the right to, you can't call yourself a feminist and then you don't give the right to decide, you don't give the right to your daughter to decide their future and yada yada yada. We're not hiring domestic abusers over here or someone who is like actively, very explicitly just going around beating women up. You think we'll just pick up anyone? Additionally, these people believe in the ideas of feminism. Like those are the kind of people we are bringing up. Plus, the organization stands to be female dominated. So how do you think a man can just come and take over? I mean, that is something that you have to have the trust in the feminist movement itself. Feminism is a very strong movement. Women, gender minorities, they stand to be strong. It will take 2 minutes for these individuals who are trying to intrude to be kicked out of the spokesperson position, right? Moving on, the opposition spoke about how the feminist movement becomes male-dominated spaces. Again, I tackled this already, and again, there was no mechanization on this from your side. Feminism is a very large movement with I don't know how many elements that cannot possibly become male-dominated, even in the long-term status quo. Moving on, the opposition spoke about how the accurate narrative is not going on. Again, so I've dealt with this before and we'll deal with it across the speech. Moving on, opposition spoke about how any man can promote regardless. Why do they have to be a part of the feminist movement? So again, this is a point about accurate narrative as well. So what you are suggesting basically is inaccurate representation, because we said that accuracy needs to be ensured. So these male spokespeople for the movement will be much more in touch with the organization. Right, so they will have a much more clear idea about what feminism stands for, what is something that should be applauded and should not be applauded. Whereas a man who has no connection to a feminist movement whatsoever will again be like spreading their own interpretations of the feminist movement. Right, so you spoke about being unaware. That is exactly what we're trying to tackle by including these men in their organization. If random people promote their own perceptions of what is feminism, then we're not bettering the status quo, we're just ruining it further. Opposition spoke about how 3 meals is not something men should be applauded for, and that is what Virat Kohli is trying to do. The purpose is normalization right? So as of now, small things like this stand to be applauded, but will be normalized much more easily on our side because we have much more awareness coming out on our side as compared to your side. Moving on to the two-word analysis, which will be an analysis of the burden as well as two-word analysis. So the burdens on our side was that feminist movement. So involving male spokesperson improves the traction towards the movement. Second was women representation is not getting hampered, which we've proven time and again. So summarize for the last points. First of all, men can, so we spoke about how men can affect policy change in the government because unfortunately, because the government is male dominated, they will be more likely to listen to men because they know the patriarchal situation. We are looking here at the highest speed of development. Males are preferred because it's unfortunately a male dominated society. And now what we are suggesting is using that to our advantage. The people recruited by feminist movements will be feminists as well, which I think the opposition needs to understand. That is, they will be promoting feminist movements, that is respect towards women and gender minority and ensuring equality and equity. At this stage, males are the ones who can actively make a difference, right? Because even though women can, it takes much more longer for them to be heard. So on our side of the house, we're looking at the status quo and making a decision accordingly instead of living in a utopian world where women will be heard as it is, right? Because the problem is not intelligence, it is representation. Moving on, if you let me take a case scenario over here. So if you give a comparison between women and gender minorities, who are normally people more likely to listen to, even women, who are they more likely to listen to? It's a similar position. Our analogy becomes much more intense in this one, but I believe it gives an accurate representation of what we are going through. It's as simple as that. I mean, if you look at the Bollywood industry, there have been movies that are recently coming out that are LGBTQIA based, right? So, but I know Chandigarh Kare Aashiqui, all of these films. So currently, all of the actors hired in this are straight, but the awareness is much, much more, right? Because these films are coming out outright and people are more likely to watch it because it has straight people, right? And because maybe they don't really understand what's happening, but then they eventually do, right? And soon enough, in the status quo, there will be people who will not be straight, who will be hired for this role. Like trans women will be hired for the roles of trans women and not straight women. Not cis women. Moving on, we spoke about the sign of inclusivity. We are fighting the perception that feminism is only meant for women or gender minorities and that women want to be treated like princesses because that is the current status quo interpretation of feminism, right? So why does this perception exist in the status quo? Because there is lack of awareness. Why is there lack of awareness? Because no one listens to women. So what we're suggesting is a reversal of gender roles over here. Women and gender minorities have been suppressed for way too long. So we are now going to use this dominance to our advantage, which we believe is unfortunate, but the fastest route to success on the feminism side. So Moving on, we also spoke about how only male spokespeople does not mean that they're spearheading the entire movement. Women and gender minorities still stand to be the heads of the movement. We spoke about the implicit, explicit bias which exists with respect to women should be doing this, women should be doing that. They're more likely to be interrupted. So we're fighting this by spreading quicker awareness. We're basically stressing male spokespersons who only the capacity of targeting education and awareness towards men because women are much more aware about the issues already. If men are not included in this movement, it can be used against it, which means if gender is not used constructively, it can become a severely divisive factor. We are not hiring Sanjay Dutt over here. Kindly don't take note of that. We're hiring people who are actively promoting feminism. With that, I'd like to end. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that, government whip. Now to summarize the debate for the opposition, calling on the opposition whip.
Yes, just give me 30 seconds to gather my thoughts.
Hi, before the op whip starts, before the op whip starts, I'll just join to screen share the timer. So whenever you're ready, just give me a heads up.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, can you please share the timer? Um, yeah. Okay, so I am Aarti Venkatesan and I'll be going as the opposition whip. My preferred pronouns are she/her, and please drop your POI in the chat box. I'll try to take that in the end of the 5th minute. Do not unmute yourselves at any time. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So panel, this is how I'm going to structure my debate. I'm going to tell you the burden of the debate, the major stakeholders, the clashes, the exclusive benefit that we provide in our paradigm, and how the case built by the government is extremely problematic in nature, right? Panel, understand the main burden for the opposition lies here is to understand that why these feminist groups are better off without the active recruitment of the male spokesperson, and their movements and their voices should be prioritized, right? Here we at no point are saying that these men should not be allowed to raise voice, but we're saying that they should be allowed to do so outside these feminist groups. And why do we say that, right? Because we're not targeting this men. Understand this, that we're not targeting anyone at any point in time, but at status quo as present, there's a fundamental lack of representation of these women, right? And their voices are not being heard, as already conceded by the government as well. They say that these voices of these women are not being heard, and that is the exact problem what we're tackling about. We're saying that these women who are well informed of the issues that they go ahead as already explained by the opposition time and again, such as trigger warning, sexual harassment, not equal pay, wages, etc. These should be allowed to go ahead and set the narrative in the first place. And why do we say that, right? So this comes to the first clash, is that what these feminist group believe in, right? The feminism, what exactly is these issues that these feminists are fighting for? A safe space for these individuals to go ahead and be given a center stage to express and raise voice and find solutions for the problems and the detrimental effects of how patriarchy has affected them, right? We're saying that men can go ahead and speak about these issues, but why is there a compulsion for them to be just recruited by these male spokesperson? Understand that we are reiterating this fact again and again. This in the motion, it clearly states the active recruitment of the male spokesperson, which does not mean that they have to be actively recruited to come and say whatever they feel like, right? And why do we feel that is problematic? Now let's take a look at what this active inclusion will look like, right? In our paradigm, it will look like the dilution of the feminist issues at in hand, already as told by our LO in the first speech, and then subsequently mechanized by our DLO, that how this will increase a place where this will become a more male dominant movement and allow more competition. How will that happen? Is because both of these individuals will be, when given an authority, will try to push the narrative in their sense, and hence making an issue about which issues should be prioritized. As already mentioned by the PM in its first speech, that the men, if these male spokespersons are given these chance, right, these men will tailor the feminist movement in the narrative. That is the exact problem, panel, we're talking about. We're saying that the change that they're talking about will be highly skewed by these male perspectives and narratives, because a these male individuals are unaware of the atrocities that these women and feminist groups are going through in the first place, and b they will misspread this information and bring about change which will be highly skewed in their manner. It will not solve the problem at large, right? We also talk about the issue of mansplaining and how these men will take the charge, and if given a little control will try to change the narrative completely. Hence, we see that the impact of this inclusion will not lead to more interaction, as mentioned by the government time and again. And why will that happen? So, because the attraction that they're getting from the men will not be accurate in manner, because these women have an accurate. Is already explained by our DLO that these women have an active know these issues better and should be given the power to go ahead and make an active narrative and a proper narrative in a sense, which is extremely required in this manner. um, Coming on to the few rebuttals. So as the government has already admitted that the that government existing is a male dominant society, right? Consider the other scenario here. If government and workspaces and institution everything is male dominated, what's the point of including men in the only space that dominated and controlled by women, right? You said that there is going to be a hijack or takeover of the moment. However, you fail to recognize the whole motion that exclusively states the active participation, which does not include assigning men important positions in feminist groups. What we're seeing here is what opposition comes ahead and presents to you is a case where these individuals, these male spokesperson per se, should be allowed to go ahead and fight for feminism at large, but should not actively be recruited in these feminist groups, as they will hinder and dilute the very purpose that these feminists are talking about, right? Hence, when they talk about celebrities and when they talk about how they will change the narrative and reach to more people, understand that these men will glorify the bare minimum, will set the standards bare minimum, which is will be highly skewed and problematic at large, because they won't be talking about the real problem. When they go ahead and say that government is likely to listen to men, it's dominated by men, understand panel why it is problematic in nature, right? We're saying that already this exists a male dominant society. Hence, if they infiltrate these feminist groups, it's a higher propensity that they will become male dominant as well, and the change that they're trying to appeal to a larger public will not happen. And the education they're talking about, okay, understand the education here and awareness here means right education, the right narrative, and not a misinformed one, which will likely to happen if we give control to these male spokesperson to go ahead and make this issue exactly about themselves. Hence, we feel that in our paradigm, what exclusive benefits do we provide, right? We provide the safe space of these women are already present here today. So they can go ahead and talk about these issues in a more better manner and bring about a change that actually happens. And at a micro level, it's also incentivizing other women who understand and relate and resonate to the actual issue is when the proposition goes ahead and makes the claim that these male spokesperson will reach to a lot of people. Understand that as a woman who has experienced atrocity, I would not relate to these men at all, who are talking about issues that they've not actually understand more about, and hence that will obviously infuriate me as someone who's part of these group. If men are so willing to fight for a cause, why do they want to be an active participation in the form of positions and responsibilities in a feminist groups, as it is already explained that we will be recruit that these feminist groups will be recruiting male, right? So they can go ahead and talk about these issues aside as well. Hence, we feel that in our paradigm, the main stakeholders here are being benefited at large. Proud to oppose.
All right, we thank the opposition whip for their speech. Now to end the debate for the opposition, calling on the opposition reply.
Okay, just 1 second. I'm setting up timer for myself. Okay, I'll be starting in three, two. Wait, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, great. I'll be starting in three, two, one. Panel, please note that side government presents a case with a lot of problematic statements and underanalyzed arguments. It's ironic that they, as a feminist group, want to hire male spokespeople, and they themselves are making such problematic sexist statements, right? So far, these are the statements, that these are the main arguments that we've received from them. PM says that men are ill-informed and they have a general notion that feminist movements are mainly only for women, and they're not catered to the male population, right? This points towards the lack of awareness amongst men. Then, even so, government continues to claim that these men should still be recruited to inform others, right? How exactly are they going to educate and inform other people when they themselves are ill-informed? Then their next argument is male dominance. Government straight out says that male dominance cannot occur in our paradigm because there are not going to be that many men. I would just like you to redirect you to the motion. It says that you're actively recruiting male spokespeople. It does not mean that there are only going to be one or two male spokespeople in your institution. There are going to be multiple male spokespeople, and the numbers are only going to go up. So there is a very high propensity of it being turned into a male-dominated space. The consequences of which we have already emphasized, that it can again become a male-dominated space, and the problems that you're trying to fight in the real world turn up in your own institution, and plus the issues that you're trying to fight against might get saturated, since you might since the spokespeople that you end up recruiting will end up spreading misinformation, and your image will also be tainted, because like I already said, when you recruit these people, you're lending authenticity to the words that they are saying. So when they go out there and spread misinformation, it is backfiring for you as well, right? In the whip speech, I'm quoting the whip directly. Whip says men causes problems, so let them solve it. So now there's a completely new
Hi,
argument coming in.
sorry, can you pause? Sorry, I think, can you pause the timer as well? I think Adia got disconnected. Adia, what was
No,
the
no, no.
last
I'm,
part?
I'm, I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. Sorry about that. I just got disconnected for like 15 seconds or so.
Okay. So is it okay? What part did you miss?
I just got disconnected for 15 seconds. I think the speaker can just continue. It's anyway like the reply speech, right?
Okay. Okay. You
Wait,
may.
don't start the timer. I just need 2 seconds. Wait. Okay. It's okay for me to start again. I mean, I'll continue from where I left off. That's okay, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll start in three, two, one. So, like I said, I'm quoting the whip directly. The whip says that men cause this problem, so let them solve it, right? This is a completely new argument that comes in the whip speech, where now they want to hand over the responsibility of solving this very problem to the actors who are causing the problem, the very perpetrators of this problem, right? We already emphasized how the very purpose of the movement is to create a safe space for women, the very women who have who bore the brunt and the worst consequences of the patriarchal system, right? So these women are better equipped than the men to obviously put across a more genuine and accurate narrative of the problems. Like I already mentioned, when we talk about sexism, it's not always evident. There are very little subtle expressions of sexism that men aren't even aware of, right? There are experiences that only women go through. How are these men expected to educate people and dismantle the patriarchal structure when they themselves are not even aware about the different aspects of the patriarchal structure that does exist, right? Then another important point that came from their side is that obviously these male spokespeople can use their target audience to spread awareness about the feminist issue and everything. But once again, my question remains unanswered. Why is it necessary for you to be a part of the feminist group to be able to rally for the feminist issue? You can do so yourself. If you're a celebrity, use your fame, use your following to spread awareness about the movement and to bring light to it. You can do that anyway. Why is there a compulsion that you only do it if you're into the recruited into the feminist group, right? Like I said, as the feminist group, our main intent, our burden is to prove why our feminist groups will be better off if we work without recruiting male spokespeople. I've already given reasons for it, and in our paradigm, there is a higher propensity that our stakeholders receive a safe space to address the issue and actually do something about it. And in our paradigm, the feminist groups have a higher propensity of achieving the goals without any hindrances that it set out to achieve. Whereas in their paradigm, there are a lot of problematic and logistical issues wherein they're hiring ill-informed people to educate the other people, which is why I feel our side wins. Thank you.
All right. Now to end the debate, calling on the government reply.
All right, 1 second, panel. Can I just confirm that my voice is audible?
Yes, you're perfectly audible. I think
Thank you.
Sneha, you're still unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I'll be starting my speech in 1 second. All right, I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Now, what we get from side opposition is simply two things, right? One is a fundamental misunderstanding of the motion in and of itself, right? When we talk about active recruitment of male spokespeople, we're not talking about the exclusive hiring of male spokespeople, which is something I feel that side opposition does not get. The second thing that we get is an entirely dominoes system of arguments, i.e., one argument is based on the other, which is based on the other, and the only supporting base for everything is that A, either men are evil, or B, you're hiring so many men exclusively that women will be effectively crowded out. Now, why do we think that there's so many problems? There are two fundamental glaring problems in their argument that make it doesn't stand apart from these two, right? Firstly, let's come and talk about how males are likely to dominate the society, dominate the feminist movement. Now, I think there's a fundamental mischaracterization of what our model is essentially, right? We're talking about the hiring of male spokespeople. I think they have mischaracterized the nature and extent of the authority given to these male spokespeople, which is essentially none, right? We've talked about how the entire feminist organization is still going to be spearheaded by feminist leaders. All decisions are still going to be made by them. And we're only talking about why men being included as part of the feminist movement is going to be better, right? Now, the second thing that they said under this, which is that, look, men are ill-informed, and if you're hiring ill-informed people to do it, then that's a big problem. Or if you want to be a celebrity and advocate for these rights yourself, you should just go ahead and do it. Now, essentially, note that these arguments contradict each other, because on the one hand, they're saying that, look, men are misinformed, so they're more likely to spread or mansplain and spread their own ideas of feminism. And on the other hand, they're saying, look, do it yourself. Now, what we on side proposition are telling you is that if a person is involved with the feminist movement, they're far more likely to get a more accurate representation. And why we said that tailoring the feminist narrative for the male audience is extremely important is because a man's view, as side opposition agrees, is might be inherently flawed or inherently biased to a certain extent, right? I'm sorry, did the stopwatch stop working? Hello?
I think yeah, it stopped working. Probably the screen share is lagging. Yeah, but you still have 2 minutes. You may continue.
Sure. Sorry for the disturbance. I'll just resume in a second. Right. Note that these arguments are contradicting each other, because we tell you on our side of the house that if a man were to have, even if a man were to have a slightly biased view about what feminism is all about, that view is going to change if he is recruited into the feminist movement. And we think that's not going to be much of a problem in the first place, simply because of the fact that for a man to be recruited as a spokesperson for the feminist movement, his ideologies will line up with what the feminist movement believes, right? Secondly, is it going to crowd out the narrative, or is it going to reduce the safe space of women? Are the fundamental characteristics of the feminist movement going to be changed? We tell you, no, that's not possible on three counts. One, like we already said, these men have an ideology very similar to the feminist movement, which means that they're unlikely to do what very, very unlikely, rather impossible to do what side of opposition comes here and tells you. Secondly, we tell you that the nature and extent of this position does not give them enough scope to overpower the vast majority of the many elements that is the feminist movement. So we don't think that's true on that count either. And third, will it take away the safe space, or will it dilute the narrative? And we tell you that's not true, again, simply because of the fact that, look, these men are essentially catering to education of one section of society. They are essentially talking about what the feminist movement is about, but they're tailoring it to the male audience, which does not take away from what the feminist movement is about, right? We tell you that the safe space won't be changed in any aspect whatsoever, simply because of the fact that these are spokespeople and not involved in the organization and the feminist movement at a deeper level. And for those reasons, we believe that that side opposition and side proposition, whatever benefits side proposition says, are largely symmetrical on both sides. We believe that we've shown to you what delta and what positive impact we create on our side of the house, right? On our side of the house, we tell you that, look, both in the short term change, as in how men are likely to listen, we're going to normalize small changes, marginal changes, such as cooking 3 meals, right? And we're going to advocate for small marginal changes, which will effectively snowball into a bigger change. And we're on the longer run, government is also more likely to listen to them. For all those reasons, I'd like to conclude side proposition's case. Thank you so much for listening, panel.
All right. Thank you so much for that speech, government reply. We may ask all of the debaters to please virtually cross the house. And I think that's it for the debate. You may now proceed today and go back to the convening hall. And may I ask all of the panelists to please proceed to room 3 deliberation room in Discord so we can have the deliberation. Thank you so much, guys, and good luck.
A small question from my side. When will the results be given out?
I think it will be given out during the announcement of winners.
Okay, sir. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right.